As we look at the odds to win the division, your favorite is the Eagles. Best number out there, if you shop around, you can find kind of minus 110s that are still out there. But listen, this team has been bet, probably again, rightfully so. Cowboys are sitting about 175, 180-ish. You can find a 190 on the Cowboys. Giants are sitting about 8.5 is the best number you're going to find on them. And then the Commanders, way out there, 16-1 would be the best number that you can find on them to win this division. So let's go ahead and look at this Eagles squad that is favored. Your second shortest shot, by the way, to win the Super Bowl, only behind the Chiefs as well, if you kind of start digging around. You do have a team that is going to replace both coordinators. And Mike, like, this is a thing where I think for a lot of other teams, I would probably be panicking. I would be looking at a squad that had a really good offense last year, had a really good defense last year, and now those guys that were kind of guiding everything are going to be in other cities. Brian Johnson takes over for Shane Steichen. He's now the head coach in Indy over there. And then Sean Desai is taking over for Jonathan Gannon, who is now the head coach over in Arizona. So I think we have to weigh that into the handicap. I think we have to weigh this into how we view these teams, but I guess I'm a little less concerned about it for this Eagles team than maybe I would be almost any other team in the NFL, strictly based off the fact of, you look at these starters on both sides of the ball, you look at the talent that's there, you get the best offensive line in all of the NFL. Like, this can make the transition for an offensive coordinator much, much easier with two stud receivers, a great tight end, a good running back, the best offensive line in all of the NFL, and a quarterback that really took a big, big leap forward last year.
Offensively, they just look loaded. I mean, they have 5 running backs right now that could make almost any other NFL team sitting in there. They're probably going to cut one of them who'll get immediately picked up at some point during this preseason. 2 phenomenal wide receivers, and that makes all the difference, right? Not just having A.J. Brown, but being able to have Smith on the other side makes a huge, huge difference for Jalen Hurts. His ability to run the ball. And oh, by the way, the scrum play, which was probably the most efficient play we've seen in football since the inception of football. On 4th down, it was phenomenal for them last year as well. I agree with you. The coordinators are not as big of an issue with this team as some others, but losing Shane Steichen is the one I'm really, really interested in. On the defensive side of the ball, I don't have many concerns. They are replacing 5 starters, but I think they did a good job of replacing those starters, so I'm not overly worried about the defense. On the offensive side, the way that they won and the way this team is built is to jump out to an early lead and then be able to control the clock by running the ball and rush the passer by rotating defensive linemen. They can still control the clock and run the ball. They can still rush the passer with defensive linemen. The question will be, as the schedule gets significantly more difficult for them this year versus last year, are they going to be able to get out to that early lead? And who was doing the game planning for the Philadelphia Eagles last year, specifically the first half game planning? Because when you watch their first halves, they knew what the defense was going to do against them, and they exploited the weaknesses of that every single game. That's why they jumped out to all these quick early leads. Was that Shane Steichen? Was that someone else inside that Eagles organization? That's what we're going to find out. We're going to find out early in this season, too, because the first stretch of 9 games, I'm guessing they're going to go somewhere in that 7-2, 6-3 range. But then they run into that after their bye, they face the Chiefs, the Bills, the Niners, and the Cowboys in 4 consecutive weeks, 2 of them in nationally televised games. That's going to tell us a lot about whether or not this team is really that Super Bowl contender and should be your second choice right now on the odds board.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the losses. Of course, Javon Hargrave is a big loss for them, but I look at this draft for this team, and I think it was the best draft that possibly for this team. I mean, you look at Jalen Carter, who you get to come in, and he's going to be now in that position on the defensive line. I thought he was the best. I'm not a talent evaluator. With my own eyeballs, having seen him play a ton, I thought he was the best player in the draft. He slips a little bit because of some off-field stuff. So they bring in him. They get Nolan Smith as well. Both of these guys are going to be major contributors on the defensive side. So as you mentioned, they did lose some guys, but I think you bring in the most talented guy in the draft to be on. And again, everything you read, it's all rainbows and unicorns from camp reports at this time of year anyway, but everything you hear about Carter and Smith is that they are every bit the players that we thought that they were coming out of Georgia. And so now you have those guys that kind of plug in, and I know you lose some guys, but it's a passing league. You bring back Bradbury, you bring back Slay, you have Maddox as well. So you're set there. Blankenship, one of the best safeties in the league. So I look at this and I'm trying to poke holes, and I tried very hard to really come in here with some negatives about this Eagles team. And it's almost to me where you just go, if they can avoid the injury bug, I just don't know how this isn't I think the floor, like you said, is probably 10 wins. I think the floor is 10 wins. And I think, again, a ceiling team could be another 13-win team.
Yeah, assuming there's no major injuries, I don't see how they don't win double digits here, right out of the gate. They're that good on paper. The defense early may struggle just because you do have so many younger players. We're basically have Georgia North here. I think they have 5 defensive players that are from Georgia now on the team. We'll see how fast they gel. This might be an over team for me early because I believe this offense is going to just continue to roll. And if you have a defense that's willing to give up points, they could be a team that people kind of perceive as an under team that are very much a team that's going to play toward the over. So early in the season, you got that Patriots, specifically week 2 against the Vikings. I think that is probably an over game. We'll see what happens. It's a Thursday night football game. We've seen those games go under traditionally. But early in the season, I'm going to be looking toward playing Eagles overs, even against some of these teams which don't have prolific offenses. I mean, we got the Patriots, we got the Bucks, we got the Commanders early. If we see totals that are sitting in the low 40s in those games, I'm playing the over.
I did bet the Eagles over 10.5 wins. As we mentioned, that number's gone. It's 11.5. I wouldn't recommend the 11.5. I thought this team is definitely an 11-win team and, can't handicap for injuries. So I'm going to play them. I played them at 10.5. I did pick them to win the division.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.